Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're organizing all of our ideas that we got together from our outline last week. We've got our major genre, we've got our minor genre niche, and we've got our list of tropes. So I'm going to bring up my trusty document here. And so our major genre is horror, our minor genre niche is urban legend, and we've got our tropes: isolation, contract on a hitman, Mortal Kombat, vampires, only I can kill him, good versus evil, and shapeshifter. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the major genre and minor genre niche, because those are the things that are going to direct us in the direction that we're supposed to be taking this book. And because we've got vampires and shapeshifters involved, it's more of an urban legend thing. So I'm going to switch these, and I'm going to make urban legend the major genre, and I'm going to turn the horror into more of a grim, dark, creepy, Sleepy Hollow, urban noir type of vibe for the whole atmosphere. But it's basically going to be an urban legend thing. So we're going to switch those around. Now, when I made this decision, I started thinking, hang on, there is a way to do this horror so that it's more like an actual horror movie. If this was a horror movie or a horror novel, what it would be more like Predator, where there are some normal human beings involved who are seeing either these creatures coming after them, trying to prey on them like vampires, or these humans would be caught in the Mortal Kombat between the vampires and the shapeshifters, and the people would just be casualties. And from their point of view, it would seem like these creatures don't care if normal people live or die. And, these creatures would have overwhelming powers that the people would not be able to cope with. And that is an angle that I want to include. So I'm going to include that as well. But if we're looking at vampires and shapeshifters, and they're in Mortal Kombat with each other, then what we have a situation where both of them have to pose an existential threat to the other. So the shapeshifters actually do have to have some power that could defeat the vampires. They have to have the ability to kill vampires. So the way that I'm going to deal with that is I'm going to make the shapeshifters into something that... So my first thought was to make them sort of a Mystique chameleon type of creature that can change its shape into anything it chooses. But in order for that to happen, it's got to be a completely different species than normal human beings, which are what vampires prey on. So my idea is that the shapeshifter's blood would somehow be poison to the vampires. They're immune to vampire bites. And if a vampire bites them, they're poisoned and they die. So that would be the first exposure. And the isolation comes in when our shapeshifter character gets attacked by a vampire, and the shapeshifter doesn't know what he is. He thinks he's a normal person, and the vampire mistakes him for a normal person, tries to bite him, and tastes that he is a shapeshifter and runs away. And that's this character's first exposure to the fact that he is not a normal human. And then he has to go through a process of figuring out what he is, learning how to use these powers, and then eventually dealing with the fact that vampires are his mortal enemy. So we've got, and moving on from that, one of the things that came up in last week's video was when I said that the good versus evil trope was a given. That's such a common trope that we need to do something so that it doesn't become this tired old cliche that's been done a million times before. You know, it's easy to do good versus evil. Anyone can do good versus evil. Anyone can do Harry Potter good, Voldemort bad. That's easy. And that's why everybody does it, because it's a no-brainer. But there is a way to do it so that it's not so obvious and it's not so tired and overused. And the way to do that is to flip it on its head so that both of these characters, the vampire and the shapeshifter they're eventually going to work their way towards mortal combat with each other. Each one thinks that he's the good guy and the other guy is evil. And that idea is what led me to so there are going to be two main characters. There's going to be our shapeshifter, who doesn't even know what he is until he gets attacked by the vampire. And then there's the vampire himself, who considers shapeshifter kind his mortal enemy because they're the only creature in existence that is capable of killing vampires. So normally what I do is I normally do a 7-book series. So this idea of good versus evil and the role reversal, I'm going to do alternating point of view. So the first book is going to be one of them, second book the other one, and it's going to alternate like that for 6 books, 3 books each. And then the final book will be alternating point of view, where the storylines come together and they meet for the final epic confrontation. So that's what I'm going to add right here. Let's go down here. So we got book 1. We got our shapeshifter main character. Book 2, the vampire main character. Book 3, back to the shapeshifter. And then book 7 will be alternating between both of them. And we're going to do the same thing with the contract on a hitman trope, where both of these characters are trying to kill each other. So they both see the other one as the hitman that's coming after them. And then eventually, so they're going to react defensively, and then eventually each of them independently will decide to go on the offensive and start hunting the person that's hunting them. So that will also flip the script on the contract on the hitman trope. So all of these concepts here that we've just come up with are going to lead us into our character sketches, and that's what we're going to cover next time. So we've already started fleshing out our shapeshifter main character. He's going to go through, his whole arc is going to be, number 1, he finds out the truth about himself. He finds out that he is not what he thought he was. That he finds out he has these powers. He's got to go through a process of learning how to use them. He's got to make contact with others of his kind and find his place in a whole new society. And he's got to become a badass. He's got to survive all these vampire attacks. And eventually, he's got to become powerful enough that he can actually meet this vampire on an equal footing, so that when they actually come to their epic confrontation, nobody knows who's going to win, including the reader. So that's what we're going to do next time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you then.